rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Chairman Franco Rossi.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Republic. One nation, indivisible, with liberty. Thank you. Seated. So we have a few, we call them housekeeping issues, I guess. Some typical things. The exits are to my left, your right, if that is necessary. We do have introductions on both sides. The select people on the left-hand side, the town manager and Karen Noyes, Franco Rossi, Carrie Gendro, and Chad Stern. Just wave to them, folks, so you know where they are. And on this side, Judy White and Seal Stubbins, who's the assistant to the town manager. Now, we do have people who want to or may want to speak. I guess I better go through that list for us. These would be people who are not residents of the town, who may be representing an organization or may wish to speak. So the employees of the town who may want to speak and probably will. Chris, if you could raise your hand so everybody would, you need to sign up if you would. So if you're a resident of the town, you don't have to register. If you're registered voter, you don't have to sign up. Well, you don't have to sign up. Yeah, that's all right. So Chris Wilkins, if I call your name, just stand so that people know who you are. Yeah, okay, over here. Karen Noyes, Cecile Stubbins, Andrew Dorset, Brian Patno in the back, okay, and Chad Miller, thank you, and Doug Damko. Okay, those are the employees who may wish to speak. Now, the others, Michael Counter, who is the president of North Country Home Health and Hospice. Where's Mike? Over there. These are non-residents that may wish to speak. So, all right, Megan Carr, library director. Attorney Laura Spector Morgan, who's attorney for the town. Wendy Roberts, representing the airport. Okay, over on the other side. Dave Ernsberger, resident. Well, he's a resident and a taxpayer, but lives in Texas. Not a resident today. Yeah. Wendy Roberts, representing, already did her. Courtney Vashaw, representing Upstate Players. And then Bethany Eisenberg, Northern Home Services, White Mountain Mental Health. Joselle Presby and Angel Marshall, Pathways Pregnancy Center. Okay, on the other side over there, yeah, good. Connor McDonald, Upstage Players, there he is. Jess and Griffith, Upstate Players. I'm also a taxpayer. And a taxpayer, okay. And Kate Goldsboro, Upstage. Okay. Okay. All right. But not registered as a voter in Littleton. Yeah. Okay. All right. David Polito. Okay. All right. Steve. Is that Steve Landry? Is that the right name? Yeah. Okay. New Hampshire DES. And Kathy Zink, New Hampshire DES. Yeah, all right. Did we miss somebody?
Yes.
Yeah.
There were two deputies.
Bethany Vicker, I missed her. Okay, good, thank you. Miss anyone? Anyone else? All right, a little more, just quickly here. You should have a card, and this card is kind of important. If you wish to vote, you're a resident and you're entitled to vote, hold the card up, and if you're asked to stand, hold the card up. Because there's a requirement that you have to be a resident to vote or a legal voter. So I guess I need to take care of some protocol here. Could I have a motion on these people who wish to speak or may wish to speak? Move it. Okay, second? Those in favor say aye. Okay, that gives a clearance for speaking if you need to, want to. So the purpose of this meeting is to have the first look at the warrant articles. There are a lot of them, in preparation for the March 10th town meeting, where you actually do the voting. But at this meeting, discussion, amendments, debate, whatever's necessary to get the final wording for the article for the town meeting. And it's your meeting, and we'll try to recognize everybody, but if you wish to speak, it's easier if you be recognized. And then there's a microphone in the center, if you could go up there, and then speak, and then announce your name, please, and announce it each time. And we ask that you wouldn't ask to speak twice on the same subject until everyone else who wishes to speak speaks. And we're going to try to move the meeting along, make it as productive as possible. Let me just see if there's anything else that we want to say about that. If you could prepare your comments ahead of time, especially if you have a motion in mind or an amendment, have that in writing, and then we'll need that to record it. And typically we rely on you to self-limit. In other words, don't wait for the bell to ring to stop. Or I might give you like something. Time to move on. We prefer that, self-limiting. And the goal of this meeting, as always, is to achieve what is best for the common good for all citizens of the town. That's the attitude behind all of this. Stay focused on the issues. Please, no personal attacks. This is not the place to have that kind of activity. We won't permit it. I'll let you know ahead of time. It will be ruled out of order. I wish not to have to deal with that way. So there are some warrant articles, and we've decided it's probably best to cover them ahead of time. They're still in the housekeeping category. I have a list. If I miss something, I'm sure somebody's going to remind me. On Article 1, change supervisor of the checklist from 5-year term to 6-year term. So when the article is read, there will be mention of that it's been brought up and changed, if you agree. Article 12 change the 13,000 to 17,685.72. Article 14, add the words up to, quote, end quote, and take out the of, quote, end quote, in front of 515,000. Article 15, change the word in the title from Dell to Dells, plural. Article 21, change warrant article number 808 to warrant article 07, number 07. Article 32, add the words at the end of the title, add the words at the end of the title, Capital Reserve Fund. Article 33, add the words at the end of the title, Capital Reserve Fund. Article 36, change the article number 9 to warrant article number 10. Article 37, add the words at the end of the title, Historical Society. Then back to Article 9. Add words after sum of 241,020 to be placed in this fund. Any questions? And I'd like a motion, this would be for the record, that these housekeeping items, we call them housekeeping items, brought up ahead of the meeting for the record. So have a motion for that? Yes? Second? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, is there anything, somebody asked me about something, when should I bring it up? I forgot now who it was. Oh, okay.
Mel Brooks. Gary, we have 54 articles on the agenda,
Yep.
which may take us into another day. And if I may call attention to Articles 42 through 54. These are the social service articles.
Mel,
Is it proper now?
No, it's your define. Just speak up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are social service articles 42 through 54. And these are articles that have been vetted by the Budget Committee. And if you ever watched them, they grill some of these folks. And in the past, we have had a motion where we approve them in mass, but allow people who may have a question about particular ones to ask those questions. And in order to facilitate maybe the timeline and also to keep some of these people from having to stay for 2 days, I would like to make that motion that we approve these articles 42 through 54 in 53, thank you. There are 12 of them, in mass, but allow people who have questions about any of these to have an opportunity to speak.
Oh, and at what point would they ask the question?
Once we approve this, then you would say, does anyone have a question on any of these articles?
Well, okay.
He's making a motion, I second it.
Okay, so the motion made and seconded to lump those articles titled petition articles. That's what you're, 42 to 53. with the provision that if anybody has a question about any of them, they can raise that question at what time?
I would say in this meeting, right now, in the beginning of the meeting.
Are you asking to move them to the front of the warrant?
Yes, thank you. Ask to move them to the front of the warrant.
So then, according to the motion, if someone wishes to speak, then I would probably say, make yourself known right now, and then we'll have that on record as we move through the meeting.
Okay.
I think the idea is,
Go ahead.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the idea is that we will move those to the front of the warrant. We will consider them en masse. If anyone has a question about those articles, they ask them now, so that all of those people who are here for those articles can go home.
Yes, thank you.
That's the
I
motion.
couldn't have said it better myself.
Any other comments, discussion in the back, please?
You have to vote on it, I believe,
Yeah,
before you have discussion. Thank you.
No.
no, after.
You're going to have discussion on the motion and vote on the motion.
Yeah.
You can't vote on the motion, you can't have discussion on the motion after you vote on it.
So further discussion on the motion? No? So that's like a point of order.
No, it's a motion.
Well, or out of order. So we're considering these petition articles first, and that's what you're voting on. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Okay, the ayes have it. So now we move to the second piece of it. So now it's your turn if you say, I do wish to speak on a certain article now. Is that right?
On any of those.
Any of those articles. Okay, so change of order of the order of business. So who has the first article that you wish to speak on? Article 42. Anyone wish to speak on that? Article 43. 44. 45. Did I see a hand somewhere? 46. But you're just for questions. 47. 48. You'll have to speak up because I don't really see your hand. 47. 48. 40, 49. 50. 51. 52. Okay, for questions, okay. 53. 54. Okay, help me out on that.
It's just Articles 42 to 53.
I'm sorry, 53. Thank you. 53. So, not hearing or seeing anybody that wishes to speak, then I think we have, you want to close that with a motion, you think?
Say those will appear on the warrant as written.
Okay. Then therefore, Articles 42 through 53 will appear on the warrant as written in our prep warrant here tonight. You want to clarify that with a motion? Don't need a motion. Okay. So let's move on. I'm kind of stunned. Or something.
I'd like to present a housekeeping motion, Mr. Moderator.
Sure.
I'd like to move that should it reach 10 o'clock, we finish discussion and voting on whatever article we're on and adjourn the meeting.
My question is, you said adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
No, well, he's asking not to postpone it, but to adjourn it at 10 o'clock, regardless of what article we're on.
And that's fine, but you do have to adjourn it to a time and date specific.
So postpone it, basically.
Continue it.
Continue it. You have to continue it if there are unfinished articles. To some future date or time. Do you guys, anybody have a recommendation on the next possible date? School meeting is tomorrow night. Well, typically the school doesn't go, well, I may be wrong, but they usually don't go 2 nights. Tentatively Thursday night? Overflow? Yes? Sky, are you all right with that? Okay, you want to,
Excuse me.
yes.
Assuming he's all right, everybody's gonna be okay. When I was the president,
So Sky, if you take the mic, if you would please, and just add that to
You want me
your,
to change the word adjourn to continue,
continue the meeting
and you want me to choose Thursday evening at 6 PM.
if
I
possible.
would like to amend my motion to include that. Yes, here.
Okay, now, clarification. Did you say wherever we're at, even in discussion?
Whatever article we're on at 10 PM, we finish and go no further.
All right, okay.
Am I clear?
Yeah, no, that's good. So whichever article we're on at 10 o'clock, we finish it, then stop and continue Thursday night if possible. Do I have a second? Second? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yes,
Are we in discussion?
well, a little bit, I think, yeah.
Peter Cooper, personally, I'd rather decide at 10 o'clock. If we have one more article, I'd rather stay till 10:15 than come back another day. So I don't understand why we can't consider this motion at 10 o'clock rather than now.
Okay, we don't want to complicate this, so hang on right there for a second, Peter.
I
Sky,
believe,
Sky, would you concede to having, that kind of like tentative, no? No? You want to keep going? Okay.
I believe that the school has already posted in the local papers that they will meet on Thursday if necessary. So if they've already posted it, how can we have the right to take their time? I think it was posted in the Caledonian and the Courier.
Okay. Do you have a contingency, Sky? Go to a different venue. You want to add that to your motion? Go to the Opera House as an alternative? We really have to have a little bit of a plan here.
Frank Gramo, you talked about, are we gonna have this, we're gonna have 2 meetings the same night?
No.
Because that's what it sounded like, maybe,
No,
okay.
no, we just learned that the school has reserved Thursday night, or spoken for Thursday night,
Yeah.
in the event of an overflow.
And,
So we can't double up on that.
okay, but it sounded like somebody said, how about the Opera House? That's
Okay,
what it made it
somebody
sound like,
mentioned the Opera House as an alternative place.
but not on Thursday.
Okay, Opera House is not available.
Thank you.
I think the likelihood of the school going over 2 nights is almost nil. that we'd be pretty safe with scheduling for Thursday
I
night.
don't know if they heard you, Andrew.
I think that the school going 2 nights is a very low probability, and that we would probably be safe for a Thursday night here, this location, at 6 p.m.
You safe with that risk?
Even if the, if I can just
Yeah,
add,
go ahead.
even if the school does go into the second night, it's not likely to be long. Can we schedule it to immediately follow the school's meeting if necessary? Is that?
The answer is legally, yes, we can. Now, let's go with Skylar's motion and then have that as a secondary motion. Who wants to make that motion? We need a plan, so. Who will? Okay, you'll make the motion. And seconded? Which would, yes, of course.
Motion on the floor that's already been seconded, can we vote on that before we start a second motion?
Yeah, sure. So the motion on the floor is to stop at 10 o'clock. Stop at 10 o'clock. With the exception of if we're in the middle of a motion, a discussion, finish it. But don't start a new article.
And he said it continued to Thursday night at 6 p.m. here.
I know, Skylar did not say that. And, okay, I'm sorry. On Thursday night. Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? I guess I didn't hear that Thursday. Sorry about that, Sky. So the motion is to stop at 10, unless we're in the middle of a motion. Finish it, but don't start another one. If we need to run over, it will be at 6 o'clock Thursday, right here. Okay? No, we made the motion. We made the motion, it was seconded. It was a vote, right? You want to make a point of order? Or? Yeah, I need to call that the motion did pass, by the way.
That's all right, you know. Adolfo, Rudy Jelsey, I just make a motion, probably we can stop at 9 o'clock because we got the president speaks, you know, on TV. Probably majority of the people gonna leave at 9 o'clock. I don't know why we gotta wait to 10 o'clock. Also, I don't agree with Mr. Dorset because he said that the school doesn't have, you know, with the probability doesn't gonna be on Tuesday night. You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows about it. All right.
No,
You know,
that's true. We don't know, but we're taking the risk that we'll have the room or school available if we need it for Thursday night. My motion was made, discussed, seconded, voted on, approved. Okay. Any other motions that we want to, or issues before we get into the warrant articles?
I'd like to make a motion that we do not reconsider articles once the vote has been made.
Second, which means that once a vote has been taken, then we don't go back to it during the meeting. So in the warrant articles, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So the motion is that we don't reconsider after a motion's been discussed. It was seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. Okay, so Article 1, to choose necessary offices, including one selectman. three-year term, one supervisor of the checklist, a 5-year term, one trustee of the trust fund. Yeah. Thank you. See? I do need a guardian. So first, one 6-year term. Yes. We amended some of these things in the at the beginning, so. All right, so one trustee of the trust fund, 3-year term, 3 library trustees, 3-year term, 1 park commissioner, 3-year term, 1 moderator, 2-year term. These will be on your ballot on March 10th. So we'll move to Article 2. Please.
Dick Alberini, and I threw my hat in the ring for selectman, and this is an anti-campaign because I put it in on Friday, and after having a deliberative session with my wife on Sunday, I tried to withdraw. And I called yesterday, and I did not know that for all of those of you who are thinking of becoming a select person, think about it, because once when your name's on the paper, you can't get out. There's a state law, okay? You will see my name on the ballot. So this is the hardest I've ever worked to lose at something. So remember, vote no for Alberini.
All right. That will be a first, I think. So Article 2. So who's handling that on your side? Yeah, please. This is Article 2 in the warrant that you have.
Article 2, zoning ordinance, rezoning of residential to commercial. Are you in favor of changing the zoning classification of a portion of map 93, lot 41, a 2.57 acre parcel owned by Ganasai LLC, situated on the corner of Cottage Street and Bethlehem Road, and a portion of map 93, lot 43, a 6.94 acre parcel owned by Eames Property Investment Company LLC, situated between Cottage Street and Bethlehem Road, both currently in the commercial 1 and residential 1 zones, so that these 2 parcels shall be in the commercial 1 zone. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0. Recommended by the planning board 7-0. I guess at first I'm making the motion to put that on the warrant.
Just for language,
As written.
for language, then you're saying you, at this point, you move the updating of the Littleton zoning and so forth, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Just take out, are you in favor? So anyway.
Right.
And we have a second on Article 4? Second. So Article 2. Bear with me here for a second.
Carol, do we have to vote on one? We don't. Okay.
You discuss it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You discuss, you have an opportunity to discuss. I don't know if I have that page. Missing a page. I think I do. So I go right to 4. I don't have 3 either. Yeah, okay. All right, go ahead for discussion.
So this was an article presented by the planning board. If there's someone from the planning board who wants to speak to it, if not, Andrew can do that.
This is a parcel off of exit 41, across from Irving, where there's currently a hotel. During the original drafting of the zoning zones, there was a specific distance from the road that was zoned commercial. It cut this lot into multiple zones, and so this would correct that and have the lot be entirely commercial. this was presented by the planning board to the select board and is recommended by both.
Okay, further discussion? No further discussion. Article 2 will be placed on the ballot for March 10th voting at the town meeting. Okay, so Article 3.
Article 3, zoning short-term rentals. Make a motion of amending the Littleton zoning ordinance by adding the definition of short-term rental and permitting them in the R1, R1A, R2, rural, mixed use, and all commercial zones. The definition shall read the providing for compensation of one or more rooms in a residential dwelling unit for stays of between 1 and 30 consecutive nights, where the dwelling unit would not generally be associated with a commercial activity, including but not limited to such commercial activities as a hotel, motel, rooming, boarding, tourist or lodging house, dormitory, overnight cabin, or bed and breakfast. A short-term rental shall not be considered a neighborhood commercial use. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0, recommended by the planning board 7-0. Same thing if there's a planning board member who wants to speak. Make that motion.
Okay, you're moving the motion. Is there a second? Second, moved and seconded. Discussion? Okay, what part, well, no, I understand what you're saying. So what's your question?
Mill, do you want to address this?
No, we need a question.
He's looking for an
Explanation is what it sounds like.
Tom Alt, the question is, why do we need this?
Okay.
Okay. This is going to surprise you and maybe anger a lot of people, but the way the Littleton zoning ordinance are written, because short-term rentals are not included in the list, they're not allowed in this town. So we've been short-term renting for 150 years. We've had zoning ordinances for the last 30-some years. It was written in the permissive context, which means that if it's not listed, it's not allowed. So what we're trying to do here is just clean up that ordinance so that people who are renting short-term can continue to rent short-term without being in violation of the zoning ordinance. Now, if you're renting short-term now, which many of you are, and the people that are renting from you have a party, and it makes a lot of noise, and a neighbor calls the police will address the issue. I have no intention of addressing the short-term rental violation, given that this has been going on for many, many years. But we do need to clean up the ordinance, or at least add this section to the ordinance so it covers everyone. The other reality is that we know that Airbnb is now here in Littleton as it is throughout the country, and because it's a different model, because a national company is collecting the fee, paying the taxes, paying you, or if you're an Airbnb renter, and assessments occur both in terms of your offering of short-term rental and the quality of that rental, and you get an opportunity to assess the people who have rented from you. This is a whole different business model, as we know. So that's the other reason why it's come up, and it's come up from Concord, because they're trying to address the issue as well in terms of this new kind of short-term rental. So we have two issues here. We have a lack of that wording in our ordinance currently, and we need to address that. And secondly, we've got this Airbnb model that's now here, and we have to reflect that as well. Can you?
Okay, could you come to the mic, please? I'll jump right in after. Yeah.
What's the significance of 30 days? Because Airbnbs are usually just 3 or 4.
It has to do with how the ordinance is being considered partly in Concord. They cut it up to 30 days. And the reason why we were considering, and I think Art's going to speak to the issue after you, Linda, is that we're trying to consider all the different types of short-term rentals we have in town. We know, for instance, that we have contract nurses or nursing staff, medical people who come in for a few months at a time and then they leave. Well, that's not covered under this. So what we're trying to do is fix this, and if it doesn't get fixed now, rewrite it given our current ordinance around rooming houses as a way to perhaps fix this.
Mr. Moderator, can be recognized.
Go ahead.
Mr. Bratz, I'll speak with you. Art Ty. So what we're talking about, to answer your question, sir, and somebody else asked why, Mr. All asked why. The answer is there is no why. This isn't necessary. This is already in existence, and I wish Mr. Moore could be here with us tonight, who would speak much more eloquently with North Country humor than I could. But what he would say is, boy, we have an ordinance already in here. We already have one that's in here, and he would point me to something that was boarding houses and tourist homes. And Mr. Bratz and I have had a lot of conversations about this. It is allowed, the activity that is happening is currently allowed in an R2 zone by special exception, in a commercial zone, and in a rural zone. By a variance, the request of a variance, the actions that Mr. Bratz is asking you through this definition of this word being short-term rentals is allowed by a variance. We already have something that's in our ordinance that is enforceable. All we really need to do, and if there was some time to clear this up, we could have changed this and reworded this, but we ran out of time to work with Mr. Bratz and his select board to change this to incorporate a zoning ordinance that we already have. So in summary form, we have something that just needs a little bit of a tweak instead of enforcing and creating a new ordinance. So if Mr. Moore was here, he would say, don't vote on this, let's come back, do it right, and do it with what we already have.
Thank you.
Hold it for a second.
Yeah.
Or do you want to respond to what he's saying?
Yeah.
Answer Art?
The-
Then Bruce come ahead.
If I may just respond to what Art said,
Yes.
and then I'll Bruce
Go
can
ahead,
come in.
go ahead. Yeah.
We began to reconsider this about a week ago and realized as of today when we had council direct us that we couldn't change what we had already posted, what had already been printed and posted publicly. So I can't tell you to vote no on this. On the other hand, if it goes down, we already have an idea to take our current ordinance and rework it to include the language that would cover this. Bruce.
Thank you.
Bruce Hadlock. There's a state law that most of you people will know about, but it says that you cannot rent short-term without a license. And anything under 6 months, you're required to have a state of New Hampshire license on the thing on it, on a short-term rental basis out of it, which also means the fact that you have to collect the revenue on behalf of the state of New Hampshire on it and send it into them. Now, the revenue in turn goes in, and indirectly, you do get some of your money back through the room and meals tax on it, which is not a good thing. In one sense of the word, the town of Littleton gets about $300,000 back from it, but it's based on population. They pay every town in the state of New Hampshire, whether you have 2 people living there or you have like Berlin. Berlin gets $500,000. They got about 10,000 people. We end up with 5,800 people on it, and we're getting about pretty close to $300,000 money back out of it. But you can't, in turn, rent short-term rentals without a state of New Hampshire license, number one. The second thing is, when you get into these rentals, you're in direct competition about the hotels, the motels, the people that are trying to make a living on it. And when you're trying to have Airbnbs and these other things around out of the thing on it, These guys are all trying to rent out, and they're trying to get revenue to pay their business profit, or to pay their taxes, their business profits tax, and everything else on it. So I'm not sure it's a good thing, but consequently, it's not a real good thing to be trying to segment them off. I don't know how to say it on the thing, but I really think that they need to study the thing before they actually make it and come back with a better one. How does the thing ought to take into consideration all of these things? Thank you.
Further discussion? That's all right. Take your time.
Ron Bolt, given that there seems to be a lot of uncertainty about the proper creation of this article, perhaps the lawyer could suggest a way to negate this article, bring it back next year?
I could, but the law says that zoning amendment articles cannot be amended at deliberative session, and the law also says you can't remove an article from deliberative session and have it not appear on the ballot. So it has to appear on the ballot as written. The way to defeat it is to vote against it.
Okay.
Excuse me, but we will bring it back at some point to cover the
Well.
partial omission we currently have. Yeah.
Okay.
Skylar Swade again, if it has to appear on the ballot, I move the motion.
Yes, okay, well, what that really means is that we'll place it on the ballot for March 10th voting. Okay, Article 4.
Article 4, zoning update to floodplain ordinance. Are you in favor of updating the Littleton zoning ordinance as proposed by the Littleton Planning Board and recommended by the New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives Floodplain Management Program? This update clarifies the current regulations by adopting the model floodplain management ordinance developed by the New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives Floodplain Management Program, recommended by the Selectmen 3-0, recommended by the Planning Board 0-0. Move to put this on the ballot.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Franco. Do you want to comment, Gary, or any comments? Oh, somebody?
Yeah, I can clarify why we're doing this. Let me just read this to you quickly.
Yeah, speak right into the mic.
Littleton is a participating member community of the National Flood Insurance Program. Membership allows for the purchase of flood insurance.
Can you hear him? Just a little bit loud. There you
Okay.
go. Yeah.
All right. Littleton is a participating member community of the National Flood Insurance Program. Membership allows for the purchase of flood insurance for the town residents and also qualifies the community for hazard mitigation assistant grant applications. This is simply an update, not new legislation. While the NFIP, that's the National Flood Insurance Program, minimum regulations have not changed, this version more clearly identifies these regulations and makes them more understandable to both community officials and property owners. Sections have been added to identify the community floodplain administrator's role and responsibilities, and to clarify the community's responsibilities in regards to floodplain development permitting requirements. Now, our current floodplain ordinance identifies a building inspector. I don't believe we've ever had a building inspector in the floodplain. And if that person is here, then please correct me. But I talked to the Office of Strategic Initiatives, and they referred to the building inspector. I said, I don't think we have one. And there was this silence on the phone. So the floodplain administrator is not a new hire that we're going to bring on board if this passes. We are going to use the highway garage director, myself, and the fire chief. Fire chief is about the closest person we have to a building inspector. So the three of us will handle that as the floodplain administration, I guess, rather than having to hire someone. That's basically all it is. So the clarification of the permitting process and the rules that you have to follow if you're building or modifying in the floodplain is what this ordinance update is about. That's basically it. And of course, there's no money involved here, or tax involvement.
Okay, further questions, comments? If not, then Article 4 will be placed on the ballot for the March 10th meeting.
I have just a question, procedural question. I noticed that we're not voting on any of these motions. Is that okay?
So because you are SB2, you don't have to vote on any of the articles as they're written. The only thing you have to vote on is if there are amendments. If you don't make any changes to the warrant articles, they automatically appear on the ballot as written. A lot of towns, and I think you're used to doing it, vote on each article to put them on the ballot, and you can do that, but if that vote fails, it's still going on the warrant. So it's just kind of a pointless exercise.
Thank you.
Article number 5, Partridge Lake Phosphate Reduction Study Design. Shall the town of Littleton vote to raise and appropriate $85,000 to hire a certified lake management engineering firm to study conditions and provide design solutions to reduce external and internal phosphate loading in Partridge Lake to prevent future cyanobacteria algae blooms in the lake, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $75,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1 et sec, as amended, with the amount of such bonds or notes to be reduced by any grant funding received for the project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the selectmen to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds and notes, to determine the rate of interest thereon and the maturity and other terms thereof, and to authorize the selectmen to take on or take any other action or to pass any other vote relative thereto. It is anticipated that there will be $75,000 in principal loan forgiveness under the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Clean Water State Revolving Fund. The remaining $10,000 will be offset by a donation from the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association Water Quality Fund. Fiscal impact note: the tax impact associated with this will be 0 per 1,000 valuation. The principal loan amount of $75,000 will be forgiven per the terms of the New Hampshire CWSRF agreement. Any and all interest accrued prior to loan forgiveness and administrative costs shall be paid via monies held in the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association Water Quality Fund. Estimated tax impact, 0 per 1,000. 3/5 ballot vote required. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0. Recommended by the budget committee 4-0. Move to put this on the ballot.
Have a second? Second, okay. Discussion? Oh, typo. All right, thank you. Do you want to come up and let us know up here? See. Yeah, right here is good. Yeah. Thank you for picking that up.
Mary Menzies, and the line that starts revolving fund, it says will be offset by a donation. Just choose one word, probably a donation. Take out the word the there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Housekeeping? Good with that? Housekeeping? So move? No? Or can we just take it out? All in favor, say yes. Yes. Okay, removed. Go ahead.
Bruce Hadlock. We've had property on Partridge Lake for some 80 years, one way or another, on it from that part. First of all, Partridge Lake is not all in the town of Littleton. it's partly in Lyman. So for us to be able to vote this in without going to the town of Lyman and getting a vote, it's not correct the way that you should be doing it. You should be getting the town of Lyman involved with it. They shouldn't be allowed to be putting something in because it's not all in the town of Littleton, as far as that goes. There's about 85 property owners on Partridge Lake. There's about 17 of them that are permanent residents. The rest of them are just summer rentals, as far, summer utilizing it as far as that part. The amount of people that you have that are susceptible to this thing on it, I'm not convinced that it's a great thing on it, or what they're doing on it. I know all my neighbors and everything else will love to be able to tell you, oh, it's a great thing. But I'm not convinced the fact that this is going to do anything for Partridge Lake. We've had one instance with water quality, and it's been monitored by the Partridge Lake Association out of the thing on it for years. Out of the thing on it. Dayton Gowdy was responsible for it, and they sent it down to Concord. But we've had one incident in all those years where they had a problem, and I'm not convinced the fact that it wasn't nothing but pollen on top of the water out of the thing on it that did this too. So I'm not necessarily in favor of this money getting involved with it, but I don't believe it's correct when you have another town that owns part of Partridge Lake without going to that town and getting them involved with it first. So I don't think that this is necessarily a correct way of doing it from that part. Now, the Partridge Lake Association has got things in here that says they're going to give money. I belong to the Partridge Lake Association, but I've never been approached by anybody asking to take the money out and using my money on the thing on it to be able to put this article in here. So I don't think that it's right that they, and we have other people that are on that lake that don't belong to the Partridge Lake Association, but they've never met to discuss this with the people around the lake on the thing on it and got everybody involved with it. So I honestly think it probably will have to be put on here because of what's there, but I guess I don't think it's legal when you have Partridge Lake that's owned by partly Lyman out of it. So I can't imagine that somebody didn't do their homework. Thank you.
Tom, I'd just like to clarify things. I wish I could clarify the lake, but it's any body of water in the state of New Hampshire that is over 10 acres is public waters that are owned by the state of New Hampshire. So the property owners own the land and the building that they live on that is sitting on that land. But none of these property owners own any piece of this lake. This is state property. So really, Littleton doesn't own the water in Partridge Lake, and Lyman doesn't own the water in Partridge Lake. It's a state issue, and I think someone's here from the DES tonight that maybe could speak to that, but that's what I know.
Okay, thank you.
Steve Landry, NHDES, Department of Environmental Services, Watershed Management Bureau. Never met this gentleman before, but that was a perfect segue. Just wanted to clear up a few things relative to the comment that was made by the two speakers ago relative to legality of the approach that the town of Littleton is taking here to pursue clean water state revolving fund loan resources. It's entirely a legal process because they had to put in a pre-application to the state of New Hampshire. These are very competitive loan resources in a limited resources environment. These were 2019 funds. They're competitive, and this pre-application from Littleton ranked number 3 out of 10 received. We only had funding to award 6 loans, and this application came in behind one from Manchester and one from Dover. So the state of New Hampshire believes in this work. They wouldn't have invited you to put this on your ballot last year. It was already on here once before. This is the second time, so it's entirely legal, and we're excited to see it coming forward again. Relative to the fact that a portion of the watershed does include Lyman, it's a very valid point. However, it's not a base of legality. Basically, a sponsoring community is the one that applies for the SRF loan. Some watersheds, like Newfound, there's 7 communities. One of those towns could have applied for an SRF loan. It's whoever wants to pursue the loan, they become the fiscal agent to manage that. So that's completely okay to do it that way. When we get to the watershed planning process, we will absolutely reach out to the residents in Lyman, because then that's when municipal boundaries disappear. When we start working at a watershed level, there are no municipal boundaries. It's the watershed, it's topography that drains into Partridge Lake. So hopefully that clarifies that. I would also like to say the need for this is unprecedented. It's a bit of a crisis in New Hampshire right now, not just for Partridge Lake, for many lakes. And I won't go into a huge biology example. You have not much time tonight, but just to put it in perspective, if you can think back to the 1800s, what were the 2 primary land uses around Partridge Lake? Logging and farming. So, and that's not just Partridge Lake. In New Hampshire, 90% of our land was logged, and it was open for sheep farming. Lakes and ponds right now, and we're seeing this every year, are having more toxic algal blooms. They've filled in with sediment. The oxygen levels are lower, and it's a crisis time. And in Partridge Lake, we could do all the work on the landscape and control all the stormwater runoff, all the septic systems. Partridge Lake will still bloom with cyanobacteria. We can't stop the internal loading that was jammed in there in the 1800s by poor land use. So that's all I'll say on that. It's like, it's not homeowners' responsibilities. It's not a problem of local landowners. It's land history in New Hampshire. And we're seeing it at Winnipesaukee, Squam, Newfound, every lake. Partridge is a small enough scale that we can do something about it. And you have an opportunity as a town to invest in a critical water body. In New Hampshire, people come to New Hampshire and live here because of our surface waters. They are in decline, serious decline. You have an opportunity now to get a loan that is 100% forgiven, $75,000. Any interest accrued is going to be paid off by the Lake Association. So there's no tax burden to taxpayers by going down this path. It's an amazing opportunity to do the first of its kind SRF loan to treat a lake, develop a plan, and have a long-term tool in hand to treat it for generations to come. And Littleton will be at the forefront of that effort. So selfishly, from the state angle, I'm really excited to see this go forward, and I hope you all support it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
I'd like to add something before you speak again. I want to, he already reminded everyone that this is not a tax impact to the town, and we have this opportunity to protect those waters. There's a fiscal component, which is why I'm particularly in favor of going forward with this. We need to protect the values of property around the lake. In order to do that, we need to protect the water around the lake, and this study will help us do that. The reason we need to protect the values is because if those values drop because the demand for those properties drops, if the water quality goes down, then values go down and the rest of our taxes get adversely impacted. So I think it's an important consideration. It's not, I don't want to minimize the value of clean water. I'm not suggesting that's not important, but it hits our pocketbook if we don't get on top of it and try to take care of it now.
Bruce Hadlock. I understand what they're trying to say, that there's no tax impact on it, but let me tell you something on it. When they signed this agreement with the dam over here last spring, you have no ability to in turn get a bond, which will all be paid for by not the dam or any of those people. It's only going to be paid for by the residents of Littleton on it and anybody that owns land. But it will not be paid for by the power companies. The power company has got an agreement in here, and that took almost 3rd, you got 9 of those pilots that you've already agreed to in the town. And consequently, as a result of that, anytime you have a bond, whether you got a school bond or you got a bond in here, it'll all be picked up and by all the residents, not anything to do with the dam over here is probably close between that, pretty close to 30% of your property taxes of it, but they will not be picking up any bonding that's in those agreements, the way the town people signed for this bond, the pilot programs. So remember that when you go to bond money.
So, okay, go ahead.
Skylar Sweet again. I'd like to support this amendment. I'd like to applaud the Partridge Lake Association for being proactive and searching out this grant to do this study. I'd like to applaud our Department of Environmental Services for providing the funds. This is just a win-win for the residents of Littleton.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Skylar. I'm Dave Ernsberger. I'm a resident on Partridge Lake and a taxpayer, of course, because of that, but not a voter here in Littleton, though I wish I were this time. I did want to make a comment. We had an annual meeting. We invite every person who lives on Partridge Lake, and for sure do a direct reach out to every person who's a member of the Partridge Lake Association. We did this meeting 2 years ago, reviewed all of these details, and 100% unanimously it was approved to expend the water quality funds to address this situation. So we do have the approval of the people of Partridge Lake. Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you.
Article 6.
Oh, well, let me just close this one out by saying that Article 5 will be placed on the ballot as on March 10th. Okay, thank you.
Article 6, the 2020 operating budget. Shall the town of Littleton raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $9,136,489. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $9,056,168, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Littleton or by law, or by the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:12, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Estimated tax impact, $2.73 per thousand, recommended by selectmen 3-0, recommended by the budget committee 4-1.
Okay.
Do you want to just?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Did you make the motion? You moving it? Okay,
Motion
second?
to move.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. You want to speak to it?
I'll try to make this as brief as possible, so. So, the proposed operating budget is $9,136,049 without warrant articles. You can see your budget handout. The proposed operating budget is 2.38% higher than the 2019 approved operating budget. That's $212,000 more. The 2020 proposed operating revenues are $7,382,953. The estimated tax impact, as stated in the article, is $2.73 and 0.7 cents. The estimated amount to be raised by taxes for the proposed operating budget is $1,753,536. Should the article fail, the default operating budget is $9,056,168, an increase of $131,818 from the 2019 adjusted operating budget. The estimated tax impact for the default budget is $2.67.7 of a cent. The difference between the 2020 default operating budget and the 2020 proposed budget is $80,322, or 0.89%, a difference of 6 cents per thousand between the default and the proposed. Default, let's see, make sure I'm the right one. Default increases include costs associated with 4 elections in 2020, increases for workers' comp insurance, parking enhancement debt has been moved to the debt service line item. Purchase of a cruiser is returned in the budget for 2020. The payment for a lease purchase from Public Works F550, which was an article in 2019. New Hampshire retirement system rates for 2020 have been adjusted. There's been increases and decreases in wages as agreed in last year's contracts or proposed budgets for full-time or for the full year. Default decreases include one-time payment for clerk office credit card system, governmental accounting standards board requirements, which is an every other year requirement, one-time repairs for fire department front and back doors, and final payment of debt for a baler, a DPW truck, and a DPW tractor. Let's see. Adjustments. Yep. Operating budget adjustments. Adjustments throughout the budget include decreases in health insurance, town expense, wage adjustments for non-union, and property liability costs. In the executive line, adjustments associated with costs to sewer and welfare funds, increased activity of health and zoning officer, increase to the professional services and grant line for project development and grants management. In the town clerk section, various adjustments in Social Security and disability, and the increase of 4 elections in 2020, which include printing ballots, postage, poll watchers, and voting machine. In the tax collecting section, there's been adjustments of associated costs to the sewer fund and BMSI, which is our accounting software licensing increases. In the finance department, adjustments associated with costs to the sewer fund, training costs, audit requirement increases, I believe that's associated with a single audit, and payroll services have been added for 1095 and 1094 IRS reporting. In the assessing section, utility assessment contract increases, software support and licensing, including assessing database, our GIS, and BMSI software. Professional services for forestry, that does timber tax reviews, had an increase. And in the legal section, we have a general increase in legal demand expenses. In planning and zoning, there's increases in training, professional services for planning services, increased hearing notices postage, RSA law updates for books and periodicals. In personnel administration, there's been a duty increase, additional human resources activity, and we've added deputy welfare duties to that area. There's been a reduction in unemployment costs and workers' compensation increases. The police department, there's been a reduction in overtime, increased match grants available in 2020, records retention system maintenance, fiber communication lines to address system speed and media backup with large amounts of video storage that needs to be backed up every night. Yep. Oh, did I? I'm sorry. Okay, I skipped the page. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, general government and buildings. We have an upgraded phone system, office supplies and building maintenance cost increases, office equipment and computer update, cemeteries, the groundskeeping increase. In town insurance, we have a reduction in property and liability insurance. In advertising and regional associations, we have a small increase in media for Granite North TV and New Hampshire Municipal Association dues. And in the police department, I'll just pick up where I left off. Fiber communication lines have been to address the speed for backup of large video for the body cams and cruiser cams. Parking lot seal coating, which is done every 3 years, is an increase in there. Vehicle fuel, there's an increase. A reduction in rentals and leases as the department has returned equipment that's no longer in use. And vehicle maintenance for car washes for their rust prevention program. 3 patrol vehicles, including equipment packages and setup, have been added to the budget. Fleet vehicles are targeted for replacement and will have mileage ranging from 90 to 120,000 miles. New vehicles will reduce cruiser repair costs. 3 vehicles will be sold or auctioned off. All new vehicles will be outfitted with new equipment. 2020 vehicles have different dimensions and nearly all equipment can't be reused. Per this plan, we will not purchase new patrol vehicles until 2023. In dispatch, our Grafton County dispatch contract increases every year. In ambulance, you'll see that we've removed the ambulance from the proposed operating budget and included an EMS budget in Article 13 and an ambulance purchase in Article 16, with Article 12 establishing a new EMS fund. But so you can compare apples to apples, the EMS budget in Article 13 is $162,838. The ambulance lease purchase is $82,754. Both items would be $245,592 for EMS operations. In 2019, the budget was $240,935. It's a difference of 1.9% in the 2020 budget. In the fire department, we have part-time positions increase, training increases, overtime decrease as we put some of that cost out to the cost of operating the ambulance, health insurance costs, phone decrease, utilities cost increases, building maintenance, vehicle maintenance, and equipment purchase. In public works, we have data processing, professional services, staff cost reductions, a decrease in temporary positions, internet service increase, traffic supplies increase, and fuel increases. In the welfare budget, adjustments to welfare for program administration, heating assistance, rent assistance, medical assistance, food assistance, funeral assistance, and miscellaneous assistance are all up this year. In the library, some changes include the health insurance changes, decreases in health insurance, property liability expenses, audio-visual programs, and utilities increase. In Parks and Recreation, we've added plowing responsibilities to Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec is now plowing the town office parking lots. It's saving us about $4,000 per winter. Actually, it'll be about $10,000 over last year. And the Parks Department is purchasing a new sander to be able to meet the demand. Article 6, Parks and Recreation. There's a reduction in temporary positions, workers' compensation reduction, building maintenance reduction, pool equipment reduction, groundskeeping reduction, vehicle maintenance reduction, audit expenses increase, after-school program reduction, and a general revenue reduction. In the debt service portion of the budget, we have the final year of the Trans-Canada settlement, which is retiring about $450,000 of debt service a year. Added lease purchase for the F-550 in 2019, added parking enhancement loan from the parking fund. In the wastewater collection system, there's system management costs increase, lab testing costs increase, postage, sewer billing, and the sub-area 5 bond hits this year. So just to recap again, this is the same information that presented at the beginning of the budget. The main difference between the proposed budget and 2019 budget is 2.38%. And the difference between the default budget and the proposed budget is less than 1%. Any questions?
Mel Brooks,
Andrew, on the Parks and Recreation, there's a reduction in after-school programs. Was that because there wasn't demand for it, or was that just because the budget was looked at to be decreased?
Chris Wilkins, Parks and Rec Director, is going to respond.
So that is a revenue decrease. 2 years ago, just before I got here, it was the cost for participants to join our after-school program was lowered to $250 for the school year for each participant. So I don't know if that was put in the budget, but we're bringing our revenue down to reflect the numbers that we've had over the last 2 years to a more realistic number for revenues.
Okay, go ahead.
Chris, our kids are still getting taken care of, right? Absolutely. Okay.
Ron Bolt, couple of cosmetic comments. The slides are not readable, at least in the back of the room. Might be good to do a handout on that. There's a tremendous amount of information there, and it's not the most entertaining part of the evening. So perhaps if we could maybe in the future have that as a handout.
So there, Ron, these notes, if you take the handout in the back, that's the budget detail. If you look in the side margins, these bullet points are really just the margins from each budget.
And annotated out, okay.
Yeah.
All right, but just to show I was paying attention.
Yeah.
At the very early part of the briefing, you mentioned something about repairs to the front and rear doors at the fire station.
Mm-hmm.
Those doors are new.
Yes.
Please explain.
That's a good point. So there was one-time expenditure in the budget last year to replace, actually repair, I think, the wall and the door frame, and then replace the doors. And Chief Mercier can correct me if I'm not explaining it correctly. But the doors have all been repaired, and there you are, yeah, repaired, and we don't need to budget for it again, so it's a reduction.
Good. Rudy Jersey. Thank you very much, to the town manager to explain everything, but probably what I forgot to tell the people over here is that the increase on a budget is $392,000, which is $392,000. No one, I believe, around here, the one we pay taxes, is able to know during the year where does this money come from and why, they gotta be spent by the selectmen or by the town. It's another thing that I wanna precise to the people that the 3 cruises that they're gonna go to the police, which, I really admire the police station in Littleton for the good job that they do. But the point is this, from $50,000 that was assigned by Mr. Schuyler about 3 years ago. Right now, we got $162,000 that the town will appropriate from our taxes to pay for these 3 cruises. Maybe they need it. I don't say that they don't need it, but it's $162,000. Do anybody human, it's able to really say, okay, let's give it to them, and maybe next year we're gonna give another one for $50,000, which this is a law signed by Schuyler, that every year the town of Littleton, it gave $50,000 for a new cruise. Now, what I say, it's that the town, before it spends our money, they should involve the taxpayer. I want the taxpayer, the middle class people, to know everything that's going on in town, which never happened. That's the reason this Rudy Jersey goes to every meeting and find out why all this money, has been spent. And I suggest here, the 2020 operation budget, been voted no. For the only reason is because, the salesmen, they don't really appreciate it. What the taxpayer little time they go through. They just think, about it, spending the money, and, whatever happened, it happened. I don't agree with that, And that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I make one correction?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Rudy had mentioned that the budget increase was 300 plus thousand. The total budget operating cost increase
Yeah.
in a $9 million budget, it's 2.38%, which is $212,139.
Well, I think you said 392,
392.
and he says 212, 139.
Bruce Hadlock. In Littleton, the big percentage of your people in here are elderly, believe it or not. You do not, they're all drawing Social Security. The increase of what Social Security ended up paying the majority of these people were 1.6%. In this budget, you have got people getting over 4% in pay increases. You've also got a lot of them, they're getting 3%. That's not correct. They should be going back to paying the same thing that the elderly people are getting of 1.6%. And I'd like to offer an amendment that they change the percentages around to only pay on the basis of the 1.6% on it, and not go to the 3 and 4% increases in wages to everybody.
That's not a proper amendment to this article. If you want to amend this article, you need to have a dollar amount to change the operating budget to.
You can't physically do it, ma'am, because the way you budgeted it out and what it's written in here, you cannot mathematically do it unless the town does it.
I understand what you were trying to do. What I'm saying is what you are proposing is not a legal amendment to this article. If you want to amend this article, you have to amend the budget amount. You can't offer this amendment. It's not legal.
Take all the money out and amend it completely so that there won't be any in it? That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to take and change the figures around so that they're not giving 4% and a little 3 and 4% increases for all the wage people that are in the budget.
And I understand that that's what you're trying to do, but you cannot do that in this article. If you want to amend this article, you need to amend the amount of the budget with a dollar amount.
Maybe they'll vote it all down.
It's not a proper amendment.
Well, you cannot physically do it because of the way that they proposed the budget on it. You cannot come out with a mathematical figure on it.
I understand what you are trying to do. You cannot do that with this article.
They shouldn't be doing this. It's an improper way for the town to be able to do it.
And that is a conversation for you to have with the selectmen at the budget hearing, but you can't amend this warrant article in this manner.
Okay, did somebody have a question about not hearing what Bruce was saying? Okay. You got the gist of it. Okay, you can't do what Bruce is proposing in this article.
Rudy Chelsea, I just want to add another thing. I would like to know, and not just me, probably even the taxpayer Littleton, why the 2 cruises, if anybody's got the old paper about the warrant articles, they were included in the warrant article 16, okay? There were 2 cruises for the police station, which what happened, people, the taxpayer, they would have decided when they go vote to vote yes or no. What happened is this is my opinion to all my friends that pay taxes, that they find out probably, and what do? They use abuse of officers. That doesn't mean what happened is this. They take out, Warrant Article 16, and the $112,000 that the taxpayer is supposed to vote for it. It's not there anymore. That doesn't mean everything is going to go in. You like or you don't like, $162,000, they come out from your pocket because of what? Because abuse of officers. Because they never talk with anybody about what they would have done if it was legal or illegal to take a warrant articles off and make, the taxpayer pay for this particular subject. Thank you.
Well, we've just heard an accusation, so I'm gonna ask somebody to explain it.
I'll just give some clarification.
Yeah.
So originally there was
Can I do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to speak for Andrew and add the clarity to this. I'm guilty. I am the one. There's never been a chance that you would ever hear Art Ty agree with the police department. It's kind of odd. So this is kind of awkward. I'm sorry, gentlemen. What Rudy's alluding to is something that I stumbled upon where the budget was showing one cruiser in the proposed budget, and to keep it an accurate statement, one in the default budget. There was also a warrant article that the Budget Committee was waffling with for 2 cruisers on the proposed warrant. When I brought it to the attention of the police chief and I said, listen, this isn't really transparent, and I think that for being transparent to the voters to show that there's 1 cruiser here, 2 here, if you're asking for 3, put them all in one spot, tell us what you need, tell us why you need it, and put it in one spot. Rudy is correct in that they were separated. As the board heard testimony from Paul Smith, and Paul can speak to it behind me, that people brought it to the attention of the clarity and the truth and transparency. There was no malicious intent in this. It was just me saying, hey, this is something that should be clarified. He presented to the selectmen in a budget here, or actually in a work session, agreed that this should be done by the recommendation of the police chief. It was done. It was literally that easy, and I'm guilty. Sorry.
And it was also presented at a public budget committee meeting, and the budget committee supported
Okay.
that as well.
All right, so noted. Any other discussion? Yeah.
Andy Cobb. It's true what Bruce said about the impact on this elderly in the town and everything else like that. And we want to attract young couples, and one way you're not going to attract them is if you keep increasing the tax rate high enough that people aren't even want to come. In fact, people are going to leave, which makes the discussion on school tomorrow even more difficult. But there is a semblance of something that could be done, to Bruce's point of reducing the cost to keep people in check. And certainly we can't divide out the cost of increases under contract for certain people, things like Bruce was saying. You can't do that, but a semblance around it would be, it's in the warrant article, instead of saying that 9136489 would be reduced to a lower amount if it didn't pass, instead say if it doesn't pass, it will go back to last year's expenditure or last year's budget approved. Then the town could go figure out, well, how do I meet that so the tax rate doesn't go up? And there has been some honorable reductions in many, many areas in the town. In some other areas, there haven't been as many honorable reductions for causable reasons. But with the multitude of areas they have to play with, there should be a way to figure out how to keep that tax rate from going up and hold it flat. The town is a business. Any major corporation in the world has to figure out how to do more with less. We're not asking you to do more with less per se. It's like hold it flat, figure out how to do some of the things at a more cost-advantaged way, keep the rate from going up as much as it is, and people like Bruce would be more than happy to sign up for that. So I would propose that one way of getting that semblance is to reduce the amount, if it doesn't pass, to a lower amount than that proposed number that was shown in the warrant there.
So if the proposed budget doesn't pass, by operation of law, you have the default budget, and that is calculated according to the statute. So you will either have the operating budget or the default budget. And the default budget is last year's budget with certain adjustments required by law.
Totally understood. So those adjustments that have to be made by law, those have to happen. My point is, find something else that gets cut in order to compensate for those by law requirements.
You can't do that. The default budget is what the default budget is. You can't monkey with it. It's a straight formula. They changed the law last year to make sure that the default budget is what the default budget is. You can't lower it if your costs go down.
Well, it seems to be there should be some way the town can figure out how to not have to spend that much money.
So I would just also to maybe help clarify that. So the budget goes through a pretty in-depth process with the budget committee where we review every section. The budget committee then votes on it after, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 meetings. Somebody could clarify that. And I would say the budget as proposed is a 2.38%, and that is a estimate. It's based on estimated revenues, so we don't actually know what our revenues will be in 2020. And it's also based on estimated valuation of the entire town. And we usually use the number from last year for the valuation. And the valuation we know, for example, this year is going to go up. We don't want to make a definitive statement of how much until we get to April 1st. But I would just say an example of that is last year, the budget was anticipated to increase by 80 cents, and the tax rate remained flat. So we've had the same tax rate now for 2 years in a row, and the goal is to, I think, attempt to maintain that or over time get us to a lower tax rate. But.
Tom, I'll thank you, Andy, for trying to be creative from a businessman's point of view. It's true running the town is a business, but it's a different kind of business as far as restrictions and things that the town officials need to abide to by state law. This is called a deliberative session, and it's good that somebody will deliberate some of these warrant articles instead of just, I'm proud that everybody that's here tonight is here tonight, but I know for everybody that's occupying a seat, a lot of people are going to watch this on Channel 2 and then show up on town meeting day and not be happy with the choices they have to vote for. So the way you can change this, whether it's something Bruce wanted to do or Andy wants to do or anyone else wants to do, is deliberate it and make amendments. So you actually make an amendment to change what the warrant article says, an amount, a dollar amount, for instance, and you hope somebody or enough people here have your back that you can change that. And then on town meeting day, the voters actually have some real choices to make. These default budgets, God bless the state for making it a state law, but default budgets these days give us a narrow gap as far as a choice goes in what we're going to reach into our pocket and pay for taxes every year. When we look at a $9 million budget, and the difference might be whether you vote that up or down and whether you go to the default budget or go with the proposed budget, and it's $80,000 or $90,000 out of a $9 million budget. It's not really giving you much choice. So God bless you all for being here tonight. Deliberative is what the session is called, so here and into the future, don't be afraid to do your homework ahead of time and come in with facts and figures to change what you don't like.
Thank you, Tom. I just want to put something out there for consideration, and I've been trying to find exact numbers or even more approximate numbers. We are a town of about 5,800 people, 6,000, and 3,200 taxpayers. We are actually servicing between 72,000 and 120,000 people per week. That's a city.
Only in the summer.
So it is a, and I think sometimes we think still small as far as tax, and we're still a very small community. I have spent some time with the police department. I've spent some time with the fire department. I've spent some time at the transfer station. We have tremendous employees. We have tremendous fire department, tremendous police department, and they are servicing our area. In fact, you really wouldn't know it until you had a fire or maybe a medical concern, but they're also servicing the other folks that come into our town. And I think it's very easy to lose sight of that. We are a city, and we're growing. We are growing younger, too, by the way, which is exciting. But I think just putting that out there for consideration may be real important. And these guys that got the raise this year, they deserved it. They very much deserve it. In fact, some of them probably deserve more for what they do and for what they give to us. And I would encourage you to stop by the police department, talk with the guys there, stop by the fire department, go up to the transfer station, spend some time at the library. The places that we have here in town are just absolutely incredible. Talk to them, find out what's going on in their lives. And it may change the perspective, and it may not. But I just put that out there for consideration.
That's fine. Bruce Hadlock, I would like to say, number one, you're not a city in New Hampshire unless you got 10,000 people. Okay, and she mentioned the word city. So you have to have 10,000 people in a town to be able to qualify, as the law says, under a city. That's number one. Number two, I observed some stuff that's going on down at the town garage. That's a relatively new building. And on a sunny day, you look at it, and the skin on the front part of that building is coming apart on it. There's nowhere in these budgets that you've mentioned about repairing that. Next thing is, you got a fire truck that's out there. You may take a ride and go down and look at your fire truck that you got down there out back on it, along with your other junk vehicles. You know, they got budgets in here for that. But I don't think you may be looking at the people, but you better be looking at what they've done to the equipment down there. You got a fire truck that should have been left whole and sold off to somebody out of it, and it's in a junk pile down there. I don't think that that's a correct way of managing anything.
Okay. Next.
I just want to address a couple of things. First of all, I recognize the challenges, particularly people on fixed income face whenever the taxes go up. But I don't think it's helpful to try to pit one group against the other. I suspect people who are retired or on a fixed income now were not getting 1% raises when they were working. We want to have people come here. We want to attract people and keep taxes as low as possible to attract them. Well, you know, you got to keep them here too. And you got to pay them enough so that they want to stay here and not go elsewhere. That is a challenge for our community. We lose good people for those reasons. And I think our budgets reflect our desire to try to address that. Regarding the issue of the proposed budget being so close to the default budget, I know it's frustrating because I know a lot of people feel like it's not a real choice. But Tom, I respectfully submit that what that really reflects is a lot of people, your budget committee, your administration, working real hard to try to keep that budget as close as possible so that we aren't overspending. There's just not a lot of fat in that budget, and it's a lot of work for a long time by a lot of people to try to keep it close. That's the goal, and that's why it's close. I don't think that should be viewed as a negative. That's what they're really trying to accomplish. That's what we're all trying to accomplish when we work on this budget. So I just want to say thanks.
Yes.
Frank Graham, our selectman brought up a good point about keeping people here. And that's good, and the people,
Okay.
the town employees.
Yep.
I have a question, I'm not sure who would be directed to, but I think the police department, we pay to have these guys trained, right? How long have they got to stay in town before they leave? I'd like to know that.
I think it's a multi-layered answer. I'm gonna let the chief speak to that.
What
In
is
the conditional offer for employment, we have the new police officer sign a document that says that they will remain here for 3 years, and if they don't, then they're responsible for repaying back the department expenses related to uniforms, training, I don't know, salary, so.
Has that been applied? Has anybody gone through that?
Not at this point. It's been successful.
So nobody's left before 3 years? They're gonna be here?
Not since we applied that caveat to the contract. It's been held.
I think we started that in 2016, I believe, or 2017.
Thank you very much. That answers my question. It costs a lot to train people, I know.
Certainly
Thanks.
right. Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Yep. Okay, ready for the question or ready to put it on the ballot to conclude the discussion? Hearing no objections, then Article 6 will be placed on the ballot for March 10th meeting. Article 7.
All right, I will move to place the following article on the ballot. Discontinue transfer station special revenue fund. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the transfer station special revenue fund, transferring the estimated special revenue fund balance of $85,000 to the general fund. No tax impact. Recommended by Selectmen 3-0. Recommended by Budget Committee 4-0.
Okay, you moved that. Who'd second it?
Second.
Seconded. Okay, you want to discuss it, Chad, or? Good. You want to comment on it, or somebody?
Hi. I've been limited on the number of minutes I can talk.
Yeah, Karen Noyes.
I'm tickled pink. A few years ago, DRA made us separate the transfer station and a few other departments out onto separate warrant articles. And we decided to start moving them back into the operating budget. So this warrant article is the first step into getting it back into the operating budget. We have to stop it from being a special revenue fund, so we need the vote to discontinue it. And then in the next couple of warrant articles, you're gonna see establishing a revolving fund and establishing a budget for the transfer station. Is there any other questions on this?
No. Thank you.
Mary Edick, will this $85,000 be used for the transfer station or just for the general fund?
If you read the next article.
Yes.
And the article after that, you'll
Yes.
find where it comes back out and goes back to the transfer
Oh, yes.
station revolving fund.
I see it, thank you.
Okay, ready to conclude discussion? If so, then Article 8 will be placed on the ballot for, I'm sorry, Article 7 for the March 10th meeting. Article 8.
I'll move to place the following article on the ballot. Transfer Station Special Revenue Fund Operating Budget. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $426,026 for the purpose of the transfer station operations, with $270,006 to come from the Transfer Station Special Revenue Fund, with a balance of $156,020 to be raised by taxation. This special warrant article per RSA 32:3(6) D and RSA 32:7B5. Estimated tax impact of 24.4 cents per thousand. This is a contingent warrant article if warrant article number 7 is not approved. If article number 7 is approved, this warrant article will be void and there will be no tax impact from this warrant article. Recommended by Selectmen 3-0, recommended by Budget Committee 4-0.
So you move that, we have a second? Second. So any questions for clarification on that? Yeah.
I just want to explain that this is a contingent warrant article. DRA, which is kind of the group that controls the town warrant articles, told us that if we didn't have a contingent warrant article, that we would not have a budget for the transfer station. So this is a contingent warrant article in case Article 7 is defeated, so that we're able to operate the transfer station.
Okay, thank you.
What happens if 7 and 8 are both defeated?
The question is, what if,
7 and 8 are both defeated.
If 7 is defeated, then, hang on. If 7 is approved, this will be void. So if 7 is defeated, then 8 takes into place. And if 8 and 7 are both defeated, you've got no operating budget for transfer station.
okay, Article 8 will be placed on the ballot for March 10th meeting. Article 9.
All right, I will move to present the following article as amended earlier in our housekeeping. To see if the town will vote to establish a revolving fund pursuant to RSA 31:95-H for the purpose of transfer station recycling center revolving fund. All revenues received from the transfer station recycling center from fees, charges, or other income derived from the activities or services supported by the fund will be deposited into the fund, and the money in the fund shall be allowed to accumulate from year to year and shall not be considered part of the town's general fund balance. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $241,020 to be placed in this fund and authorize the withdrawal of $85,000 from the general fund unassigned balance, which represents the amount transferred from the transfer station special revenue fund in warrant article number 7 is approved, with $156,020 to come from taxation. The town treasurer shall have custody of all monies in the revolving fund and shall pay out the same only upon order of the governing body, and no further approval is required by the legislative body to expend. Such funds may be expended only for the purpose of which the fund was created, which include repairs, improvement, equipment, bags, supplies, and building needs. This authorization will stay in effect until rescinded. The budget for this in 2021 will become part of the town's operating budget and will have a default and proposed amount. If warrant article number 7 is not approved, this warrant article is void. Estimated tax impact of 24.4 cents per thousand, recommended by Selectmen 3-0, recommended by Budget Committee 4-0.
And let me just correct the answer I just gave because I was wrong. If Article 7 is defeated, you still have your transfer station special revenue fund and you operate out of that.
Okay. All right, on Article 9, before we go to 10, you have something on 9?
I do.
Okay.
There are a number of words written in all caps. Was that done intentionally? If not, could we put it in regular type?
This warrant article, DRA have a canned warrant article, and in their canned warrant article, it was written in caps. So I used DRA's sample warrant article. I'm being told we don't have to, so it could.
I would suggest changing it because it just draws attention to that. Like, pay attention to this. And secondly, could you further explain what DRA has done to us? I mean, 2 years ago, we did this whole flip over, we got to take it out of the budget, and now we're putting it back in. It's been very confusing. Could you give just a few more words on that?
Mhm. A couple of years ago, DRA made us take all of the special revenue fund accounts, which included the transfer station, Opera House, and the parking meter fund, out of the operating budget. The items that could stay as part of the operating budget was the special detail fund, that's a revolving fund, and the Parks and Recreation, and the sewer fund. So those departments were able to stay as part of the operating budget. And this was something that they required all towns to do that had special revenue funds. And the only way we could get them back as part of the operating budget and have one complete operating budget is by voting them in to be revolving funds. So this is the steps we're taking to do this. Next year, we hope to work on the parking meter fund to do the same thing. So warrant Article 9 establishes the transfer station revolving fund. So by having this approved, this will be the first step in getting it back as part of the operating budget. So you won't see a separate warrant article for the transfer station. It will also eliminate the need for the transfer station use of funds warrant article that has been on the warrant for many years, because the selectmen will be authorized to withdraw and use those funds for purposes in which this warrant article is written for, just transfer station. So there'll be at least 2 less warrant articles next year if this is approved.
Yeah. Okay? Yes.
Could someone, just because I'm confused, could someone simply explain the difference between a quote revolving fund and a special revenue fund?
Okay, a special revenue fund, the voters have to vote on the budget for that. They also have to vote to use funds out of the balance that's left. So if you have more revenue come in than expenditures, the money falls to a special revenue fund balance. Revolving fund is very similar to that. The revolving fund is a fund that continues to accumulate, and the selectmen are allowed to authorize the expenditures of, and we only have to budget for the portion that is tax, that would come from taxation. We do not have to budget for the full expenditures of that budget.
Thank you.
Okay. Ready to place Article 9 on the ballot? No objection. Article 9 will be placed on the ballot for the March 10th meeting.